Geno Smith was one of the biggest surprises in the entire NFL last season, and he punctuated that season by taking home the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award. But despite his excellent stats, his winning record, and his Pro Bowl nominee, people aren't convinced. Some people are convinced that Geno Smith just got lucky and he strung a few good games together and he's not actually the quarterback that he posed as last season. So in this video, I will be taking a deep dive into Geno Smith's season to try to determine whether or not he was a one-hit wonder or if he can maintain the success for many years in Seattle. Now, of course, before we get into the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment your opinion down below on whether or not you think Geno Smith is a fraud or not. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So to give some context, Geno Smith was drafted in the second round, 39th overall by the Jets back in 2013, and he ended up being the starter there for about 2 seasons with pretty pedestrian results, to be honest. In those 2 seasons, he went 11-18, threw for 25 touchdowns and 36 interceptions. Now, not good numbers by any means, but he was a rookie, and the Jets at that time were not very good at all. So how much of that is really Geno's fault? And then, after those 2 seasons, Geno Smith was basically just casted to the shadow realm. Didn't start at really any games for the next 6 years, unfortunately. He sat behind guys like Eli Manning when he was in New York. He sat behind Phillip Rivers when he was with the Chargers. And then he sat behind Russell Wilson for a few years when he made his way to Seattle. So it seemed that his role for the rest of his career had kind of been cemented as journeyman backup quarterback, which isn't the worst thing in the world. In a 2021 game against the Rams, Russell Wilson got what I would like to call a big owie and was unable to finish the game and ended up missing a few games as a result. Geno Smith was able to step in and start a few games. Started about 3.5 games, the rest of that Rams game, and then 3 games on his own. And actually was pretty good. He threw 5 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He played surprisingly well for a guy who really hadn't seen many meaningful action in years. And I think that was kind of a small clue that not a lot of people picked up on, that maybe he could be something more than just career backup. But his career and the trajectory of the Seahawks as a whole would change the last offseason when they made the trade for Russell Wilson, shipped him off to Denver. Geno Smith now was able to come in and cement himself as the starting quarterback. He was going to have a training camp battle with Drew Lock, and he had the opportunity to be a full-time starter for the first time since 2014. So Geno Smith was about to take over the Seahawks. Many who called trash, terrible. There was even a few people who called them the worst team in the league after they traded away Russell Wilson. Geno Smith was about to inherit this team as the full-time starter, and he did not disappoint.
Smith waiting for the shotgun snap. The fake. Rolls right. Throws for the end zone. It is caught. DK Metcalf overpowering the Rams to snatch it away and give Seattle the late lead.
Geno Smith threw for 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He threw for 4,282 yards, won Comeback Player of the Year, led the Seahawks to a winning record, and was competitive in the first half of the playoff game against the 49ers. Not only did he as an individual vastly exceed expectations from what people had thought in the preseason, but the Seahawks did as well. The Seahawks were a much better team than a lot of people predicted. They picked in the top 5 like people predicted, but that was because of the Denver Broncos, not because of their own picks. So it was a great season for Seattle. It was a great season for Geno Smith. Geno Smith was then rewarded in this offseason with a 3-year, $105 million contract extension for the Seahawks. Nothing too crazy, but also a pretty nice increase in pay as a reward for his great season. Now, as the Seahawks continue to get better and better and better at each position, many believe they had another good draft this year. The question remains, is Geno Smith the guy to lead them into the future, to help them take that next step to be a legitimate contender? Or was last year, a flash in the pan? Was it a one-hit wonder? Stuff like that. So let's start on the positive side of the spectrum because A, I'm a Seahawks fan, and B, I'm an optimist. So I really want my heart to be right on this one. So let's talk about the yes. A reason why I think he can be good going forward is because the Seahawks got a lot better in this offseason. They have continued for 2 years in a row to get significantly better in the draft. Specifically in this draft, however, they took the draft's #1 wide receiver to add to an already wide receiver stacked room with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They took a running back in the second round in Zach Charbonnet, who is going to help the offense run the ball more consistently, having Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet have that thunder and lightning duo. And they also improved in their offensive line this draft. They took a guard from LSU. They took the center from Michigan. Last year, let's not even forget to mention that the 2 tackles were both rookies, Abe Lucas and Charles Cross. I think they're going to get better. The young guys up front are going to get better. Kenneth Walker's going to get better. You know what I mean? So everybody on the offense ideally is going to improve, and they made improvements in the draft at the position. Additionally, I think another fair thing to say that doesn't really affect Geno Smith directly, but I think their defense is going to get better. And when your defense is better, you're put in less bad situations, and you're able to play the game according to the game plan and not have to, do all sorts of crazy shit. And if the Seahawks could actually be on the field on offense, that would be great. Everybody ran all over the Seahawks last year, and we'll get a little bit more into that in the later part of the video. So put a pin in that, but Seahawks are improving across the board, and I think that's only going to help Geno Smith. Next, I want to look at some advanced stats talking about Geno Smith. So, Geno Smith, just hear me out for a second. He was 8th in air yards, which means that his completion percentage and all of that was not inflated by a bunch of checkdowns that people just took to the house. 8th in air yards. He was 3rd in completed air yards, which means he was bombing that thing. He was 31st in pass yards after the catch, which means he didn't get a lot of help from yards after catch. DK Metcalf is a deep ball receiver, and Tyler Lockett at this stage in his career is not a great yards after catch guy. He's still good, he's still slippery, but he's not, like some of these other guys in the NFL. He's not a great, so he didn't get a lot of help from yards after catch, and he's bombing it down the field, which that's a good sign. 33rd in poor throw per pass attempts, which means every starter was above him, basically. So he did not have a lot of poor throws. He didn't put the ball in harm's way a whole lot. He was 4th in on-target percentage at 78.8, so his accuracy was really, really good. He was pressured the 4th most times out of any quarterback. And again, I think that number's only going to go down, helping him out. 6th in yards per attempted scramble. So when he was scrambling out, he was pretty effective. And I think the last thing that's really important to mention is that he was legitimately the best deep ball thrower in the NFL last season. On deep balls last season, he went 24 of 51 for 719 yards, threw 13 touchdowns, only had 2 interceptions, had 116.6 passer rating, and he had a 13.2 completion percentage over expected on his deep balls. That is insanely efficient. That is awesome. So great deep ball thrower. His EPA was also 42.3 on deep balls. He was the #1 deep ball thrower in the NFL last year. I mean, he was awesome on deep balls. And that's something that Pete Carroll's always done with Seattle. Russell Wilson always threw the deep ball when he was with the Seahawks. Geno Smith did it last year. So to see that he is equally as good, if not better, at Russell Wilson than throwing those deep balls, that is such a good sign for the Seahawks. I think another good thing for Geno Smith, a positive sign looking forward, is that now he's familiar with the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. Spent 2021 with him, mostly riding the bench, but like I said, he did start a few games. Last season was with Shane Waldron, had a full season under him. Now he's going into year 3 with Shane Waldron. I think that relationship is only going to grow. I think the chemistry between those two guys is only going to get better, and I think that if they can have a successful relationship, it's only going to bode well for Geno Smith going forward. And then lastly, this is just kind of a obvious thing in my opinion. The NFC isn't very good. I mean, the NFC is not great. The Eagles obviously are really good, and I think the 49ers in our division are pretty good as well. Outside of that, though, I don't really see a team that is, definitely going to be a headache for the Seahawks. You know what I mean? There's a lot of teams that could be good. There's a lot of teams that have question marks. But there's no, real dominant teams outside of the 2 I just mentioned. Now, in the AFC, I mean, you have a lot of dominant teams. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, I would say the Dolphins, the Chargers. I mean, the AFC is stacked. The NFC is the significantly weaker conference. So if there was a time to strike and get hot and, capitalize, I think it would be now for the Seahawks. And I think Geno Smith is able to do that. And of course, what kind of YouTuber would I be if I didn't play devil's advocate and offer a rebuttal to my previously made argument? So now I'm going to make the argument against Geno Smith being the future for Seattle. The first thing that people want to argue about is the fact that his first half of his year was a lot better than his second half of the year. And I'm going to provide some context for that really quick, though, so just give me a second. So Geno Smith in total played 18 games. He played 17 in the regular season, 1 in the playoffs. So I'm going to split his season down the middle and go the first 9 and the last 9. In his first 9 games, he threw for 15 touchdowns, 4 picks, threw for 2,199 yards, completed 66.13% of his passes, and went 6-3. really good first half of the year, right? In his second half, he threw for 17 touchdowns, threw for 8 interceptions, threw for 36 yards, completed 66.9% of his passes, and went 3-6. Now, the obvious outlier there is the difference in record between the first half of the year and the second half of the year. But let me provide some context for that, right? So, looking at that 3-6, some of the losses that they had at the end of the season, right? They had 2 to the 49ers, so that's fine, right? They also lost to the Chiefs, who, Chiefs are the Chiefs, and they just won the Super Bowl, so cool. They also lost to the Raiders on a day when Josh Jacobs himself had over 220 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And we also lost to the Panthers, who as a team had over 220 yards rushing. My argument is not that Geno Smith was perfect in the second half of the year. My argument was that the reason we were losing so many games was because of our run defense. We could not stop the run to save our life. It was disgusting. Our defense was like Swiss cheese. So, is that record an indicator of how Geno Smith was playing? I don't think so, because I think he threw more touchdown passes. He did throw a few more interceptions, but he threw for more yards, more touchdowns, completed a higher percentage of his passes. I don't necessarily blame Geno Smith for that. I'll blame the defense, but maybe I'm just overcompensating, as I do for other aspects in my life. But people want to point that out, and I don't think that that's a significant difference. So that's number one. Number two, it is also fair to say that, more film, teams are going to know how to attack him now. They're going to have a whole offseason to plan for him, and that's fair. But you could say that about any rookie quarterback. You could say that about any first-year starter. So could it happen? Yes, but I don't know. I think he is also going to adapt, and he is also going to work on what he was not great at last year. Another maybe no reason is, can he stay healthy? I don't necessarily think he's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career, but you never know. That's the whole reason that's the whole reason he got this chance in the first place, was because Russell Wilson got hurt after never missing a game, right? I think Geno is going to stay healthy. I really hope he does. But again, that's never a certainty in the NFL, unfortunately. I think one legitimate concern is, can he continue to be just crazy efficient with that deep ball? I do think he's a good deep ball thrower, but his deep ball last year was unreal. Those stats, 13% above completion percentage, that is crazy efficient. I don't know if he'll do the same thing next year. I don't know if he necessarily needs to, but I wonder how efficient he's going to be relative to what he was last year. And then I think another concern is just the fact that he was awarded that contract extension and everything like that. So you could see a dip in motivation. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. That's just a possibility. So after reviewing all of those things, I personally, unbiasedly, feel as though Geno Smith is going to be a good quarterback for the Seahawks for the next couple of years. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's Josh Allen. I'm saying Geno Smith is going to be a good quarterback, a quarterback that you do not have to replace, a quarterback that is able to take the Seahawks where they want to go. Is he going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow and Mahomes? No, but I don't necessarily think he needs to. The way Pete Carroll likes to run his team, it's not with, superstar quarterback. We saw how much of a failure the let Russ cook movement was. We don't need that, right? Pete Carroll is going to want to run the football. He's going to want to play action, and he's going to want to play defense. And the Seahawks improved their defense. They improved their offensive line to run the football. They got another running back. I think the Seahawks are going to play Pete Carroll's style of offense, which does not require Geno Smith to be, super mega prime Tom Brady by any means. So I think the Seahawks and Geno Smith are both going to be fine going forward. I think that they are set to take the league by storm. And I think that Geno Smith is in good position to win some playoff games here in the next couple of seasons. But what do you guys think? I just gave you guys a whole couple-page script about why I think Geno Smith is going to be good going forward and that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. But what do you guys think? I want to hear your opinions in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I wanted to get a quick video out for you guys on Friday talking about Geno Smith, a topic that I'm very passionate about, obviously my Seattle Seahawks. But I just want to make this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's podcast episode. Peace out.